went on a long rant, but guess what I did afterwards? I let KD on I let him go on an equal long rant.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever I did, he did. If I talk long, he talk long.
That's balance.
Yeah.
I appreciate it because it bought me time. When I said, all right, I got 2 more stops before I get to my stop, and I let them keep this up long enough where I can get indoors, and hopefully I can call in, which it worked out for the better. So, but
Yes.
I thank Donnie Williams for dropping the link. I thank you for having me on here.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I don't mind criticism and opposing views. That doesn't bother me because that's normal, right? And that's life. That's normal in life. So because whatever you're going to say to me, that might be controversial or critical. Guess what? Somebody's going to say it. If it ain't you. So I might as well be prepared for it now. All right, so we got a guest
Yeah,
on.
we were all respectful. Okay.
Peace, brother. Who's that? Chaotic Truth Live?
This is he.
Yeah, what's going on?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing great. Yourself?
Great.
Yeah, doing real good, man. Real good. So you had FBA in the title, and then my name or my face was on the thumbnail. So what's going on?
Yeah, so I was going to address everybody on the thumbnail. I was going to. You was talking about. Well, you had a live where you were talking about a Jamaican. Not talking about you was addressing a Jamaican guy on there. You probably know what live it is, and I was going to just play that one a little bit, see where y'all was going. I didn't even know where it was going. It sounded like it's interesting.
Yeah, you could definitely play it. You're talking about probably a gentleman named Reese. He's supposedly he's Jamaican, but more than likely he just lives in America. He has Jamaican roots. But yeah. But so you haven't played it yet?
No. I ain't played yet. That was the goal to play that tonight. I was gonna play you. I was gonna play Lord Jamar, something he said I ain't like, and I was gonna play I was gonna try to play Godfrey thing to see what people were mad about. But as far as your thing, what is your thing with FBA? Like, what is your criticism with FBA?
The only I have a few criticisms of FBA. One of them is the lack of accountability. The constant blaming of this fictional white supremacy for everything, when in fact the FBA is truly the master and commander of his or her own destiny and fate. And also, another problem I have with FBA is they give too much credit to insignificant industries like entertainment and sports, when FBA should primarily focus on, in my opinion, industries like critical infrastructure and what makes other people superior. You never hear, like, for example, Tariq Nasheed talking about creating an institution that creates rocket technology or steel, things of that magnitude. You never hear him talking about creating other systems that governments can purchase. When's the last time you ever heard of FBA say, "Hey man, let's build our own submarines, right? Or let's build our own aircraft, so that we can protect our people." That's one of my problems with FBA, man. The constant, just always saying rap and hip hop is important when it's not. So yeah, I don't really have any problem with FBA.
Yeah, I don't think I think some might feel like that, but to say like the whole, because don't forget when we say FBA, where even though I know most Black Americans don't say the FBA, but when we say it, we think of all Black Americans together. So when you say FBA, you probably got to, like, to get my mind just to focus on FBAs and not all of Black Americans. You probably got to say FBAs and not all of Black Americans. Because if you just say FBA by itself, I'm gonna automatically think of 43 million. Okay, but let me ask you this. So So you said white supremacy, blame white supremacy.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, are you familiar with the 40 acres on and a mule renege?
There was a general, I can't think of his name, after either the Civil War or I think it was after the Civil War.
Yep.
I know it was
What?
prior.
Actually, yeah, it was leading up to it. But go ahead.
Yeah, or prior to Reconstruction, there was a general who promised, and he promised the people who fought with him, the blacks who fought with him, 40 acres and a mule.
So he actually promised 20 black leaders.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So it was 20 black leaders. Okay.
Right. So it was more like it wasn't really a promise. It was actually a real negotiation. It was a real deal that they worked out. So this is
you, man.
Right. So it was an actually real deal. It's like a paper. It was not something like that was just promise you go fight. It was actually a real contract, a real deal that they worked out with each other. That if they helped fight in the Civil War, that they'll be granted 40 acres and a mule. Now, well, that was not that. That's the term we use now. But let me just ask you this: do you know what the 40 acres and mule actually represents? Because it's symbolic. Do you know what it represents?
No. Please tell me.
So it represents 400,000 acres of the Confederates' land. So they're going to be rewarded 400,000 acres of the Confederates' land, which that's what happened. So when they obviously helped win the war, Abraham Lincoln signed off without question, and 400,000 acres of Confederate land was awarded to the Black Americans. Now, what they did was they divided the land amongst themselves, and it ended up being 40 acres to each person. So that's how you got that. But that term was like something that we named it afterwards. So it was divided to 40 acres each person. Now, but here's the white supremacy thing that you said we blame. So now after getting the land, because right after the land, what happened before there was the Homestead Act, where white people was afforded, white immigrants was afforded way more than 40 acres, way more than what we got. Like it was nowhere near. So they got land because they understood that tillable land was going to eventually appreciate, it's going to be equivalent to wealth, which really happened. So that was Abraham Lincoln and that general way of giving us something for what happened to us during slavery and being deprived of any fruits of our labor. So we were going to get something to kind of catch up to a certain degree. So now when Abraham Lincoln got assassinated, I think John Adams was his vice president, he took over and gave the land back to the Confederates. So that's stripping land from us. Land was everything at that time. Land was money. It was everything. Everybody's coming over for land. Okay, so they took the land from us. So now we're starting back from zero because we was already slaves with nothing and we're being free with nothing, but now we're getting something. Okay, so that's a real legitimate thing to point at and say, hey, look what happened over here. Now, right after that, Abraham Lincoln also set up the Freedmen's Bureau and the Freedmen's Bank, where we accumulated, I think, like $70 million in a short span of time, $70 million in that bank. Now, that bank was a white guy, part of that bank, and he pretty much sabotaged the bank. He invested in high volatile stocks or whatever he was doing with the bank. He like invested the money in high volatile things. He squandered the money very quickly. So the bank went from being plus 70 million to negative 3 million. So they squandered. So that's more money and land stripped away from us. Okay. So now after that, so here's the timeline. After that, you have the HOLC, the Homeowners Loan Coalition. This is well, before that, you had zoning laws. So zoning laws what kept us in our poor neighborhoods. So it was illegal to get out of our poor neighborhood and move in a more suburban type of neighborhood. Okay, so zoning laws. So now you had the GI Bill. You had a lot of things going at that time. You had the Social Security Act, but now, so this is real stuff to point at. So there's a whole paper trail to show how we were continuously locked out of wealth to up until 1968, like where it's legal to do it, where we're so far behind now that pulling your bootstraps up, that's out. Because just off the Homeowners Loan Coalition, just off the 1934 FHA, just off that to 1968, like they calculated that we missed out of 100, just home ownership only. We were locked out of $50 billion just out of home ownership, nothing else. So now when they try to say, okay, it's all good, integration, Civil Rights Act, it's all good, we're fair. It's like, nah, we're literally locked out of so much wealth. So the Homeowners Loan Corporation was to give white people from depression loans for homes that didn't have to pay back. So again, this is free. So white folks getting welfare like crazy. They're getting government assistance over and over and over throughout this country. The Social Security Act, they got the ADC, the welfare, all this type of stuff. We were locked out of welfare, government assistance for literally over 100 years, while all they got was welfare over and over and over. They never did anything by themselves. They always got a push from government. So now when 1968 comes, you got ADC, you got welfare, and then welfare morphed into TANF, which made it more strict. Oh, and don't forget about the Man in the House Act, where they literally came to black homes to see if a dad was there or a man living there, and they kicked off the program. So these are real things, and that just not even mentioning redlining, not mentioning house segregation and job discrimination, all these legal Jim Crow laws until 1968, and it carried on past that. I didn't mention convict leasing. So Alabama state economy was 73% of it was based on convict leasing, an illegal act, where they locked up black men for something little simple and then rented them out to different steel and coal mines forever. They never got out of it. They got the peanut system. They told the farmers, hey, I give you this loan, just pay me back. And they always never paid them back. They always owed more than what they accumulated, than the labor they accumulated. So yeah, all these different white supremacist measures, right? This is white supremacy at work. Keeping us in debt, blocking us from equality, home ownership, keeping us just in our wretched situation. We can never move to the middle class. So now a couple of black folks actually got around the zoning laws, and they actually bought homes in middle class America. What do you think happened? White folks got together, either burned their house down or ran them out the city. So you have a history, a timeline, a paper trail of white America blocking us out of gaining wealth, taking our land from us, zoning us out, not giving us any loans, giving loans to everybody white but us. So we're not blaming. We're pointing at something and saying, hey, this is why we're in our position today. And this is why you're in your position. Your government help, your government assistance is why you're doing good. The 1933 Home Owners Loan Corporation, they said that single-handedly created middle-class America, while at the same time locking us out. So we're not blaming, pointing fingers. Well, we're actually pointing fingers, and we're pointing fingers for the right reasons.
Excuse me, FBA defensive. I just want to add something real quick. This thing about FBA pointing fingers about and complaining about racism or white supremacy. Listen, all that, even what you said and mentioned about the discrimination that FBA's endured up to 1968 and afterwards, let's just look at the first 50 to 60 years of FBA's emancipation. Okay, if we're looking at June of 1865 or June 1866 up to roughly 1916, 1920, look at all of the cities and villages that FBA's built without government assistance while being heavily discriminated against.
Right.
But remember, that was the Reconstruction and the Jim Crow. We had, Wilmington, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, Elaine, Arkansas, Ocoee, Florida, Rosewood, Florida, Seneca Village in New York, and a whole bunch of other places too numerous to mention. And they're gone as a result of these white supremacists hating, or what I mentioned earlier, bad mind, racists, They run up into these towns. They burn, Tulsa, Oklahoma, of course. Burn down FBA towns and villages. Remember, white supremacists and their lackeys alike love telling FBAs they need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps.
Right.
These are people that have a history of doing that within the first 50 years of the emancipation. Now, we look at the first 50 years of the emancipation of countries in the Caribbean and Africa alike. What do they have to show? And I'm Jamaican descent. So again, for me to put this out here, this is part of house cleaning for me.
Right.
I put that to any Caribbean person, especially Jamaicans, those that were born and raised there, as well as those abroad. What have we had to show within the first 50 years of our emancipation of a reflection, a positive reflection of us as Black Jamaicans, not just Jamaicans with tough many one. We're not doing that chimerical crap over here. We're not doing that chimerical crap over here because it's okay when we embrace everybody, right? But when you know what hits the fan, you're looking for allies. And by that time, you should already have certain things established where whoever you would initially look to ally with, they would want to align with you because you about your business.
Right.
And you have a track record to show it. So of course, naturally, and a lot of Africans and Caribbean states may not want to admit this because it just tastes their asses. When you have to look at that, just the first 50 years, we could go into other aspects even before FBA's emancipation, where you could go back 50 years before that with Thomas Jennings, the inventor of the dry cleaning system and all that. We go back before that, but I'm just dealing with that part right there. Those 50 years between emancipation, the FBA's emancipation, and say 1918, all that what they accomplished and destroyed. Could you imagine if white supremacists, if they weren't so evil and they just stayed on their part of town and FBAs were on their part of town and just built with no interference? Could you imagine all of those towns that were destroyed, where they'd be today? Right. That's a thought. That's just something I want, especially the Caribbean tethers and the African tethers that are listening. That is a question that I put to y'all, and I wanted to burn in your psyche. I'll land my plane on that.
Yeah, now to piggyback off that. So now all of a sudden welfare and government system is bad. So again, we were locked out of it, all of our existence until after 1968. Now all of a sudden welfare is bad. So now we finally, now keep in mind, welfare is what kept this country afloat. Welfare is why you have a middle class. Welfare is why you got rich people here. Okay, so welfare kept this government assistance. Now I'm saying welfare because welfare is a type of assistance that extends from government assistance, but it's still government assistance. So of course, welfare started in 1933 with this, 1935 with the Social Security Act. But welfare is government assistance. So government assistance has been around. It's more American than American pie. Okay, so basically, I can even make this argument that we got welfare at the same time immigrants got it when they came over here after 1965, the Immigration Act. We got it when y'all got it. So we were here all that time, never got welfare. And now we're getting it at the same time as immigrants start to come over here since the 1965 Immigration Act. So, but now check this out. But when we get it, it's bad. Pull your bootstraps. You don't need welfare. You're the welfare queen. But meanwhile, immigrants come over here, welfare or government assistance. No problem. But with us, only us, welfare is now demonized. when welfare, and matter of fact, we got welfare. We got the strict welfare. We got TANF. Because even with the old welfare, with the Man in the House Act, only a small percentage of black folks was on it. We didn't really get on welfare until I think the 70s, like in large numbers. So, but now, because welfare is for needy people. It's an emergency assistance. That's what it is. It's supposed to hold you afloat. Now I disagree with people staying on it. Yeah, you want to end on something? You want to drop something, Flash?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a question, Unbiased. Or, well, it's a series of questions.
Okay.
One, do you own a home? Two, do you have a bank account? And three, did you graduate from college?
No college graduate. Don't own a home, and I got a bank account.
Okay. Well, all my life, all I've known is home ownership. My friends, extended family, people I went to college with, had every opportunity possible to be anything that I wanted to be. And there was no white institution holding me back. And so that was to pretty much not rebut what you were saying earlier, but you were talking about systems that were in place to keep black people back, like the Homestead Act and all that. So I just wanted to say, me personally, I just can't relate to that. And I'm not saying that you were wrong in what you were saying, but I understand the history, but there were also very wealthy blacks in that time period. Madam C.J. Walker is an example of a very wealthy woman who actually lived next door to Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, who was instrumental himself in funding historically black colleges. And there are so many very wealthy blacks, even in that time period, that I can name right now. And what I could say about what you were saying about the destruction of cities or towns, they weren't cities, but they were towns. I could argue that the black man should have figured out how to fight better. You just can't run up in Israel and the Jews are going to just sit back and let you do stuff to them. So is it an argument of white supremacy or just black men are just cowards and can't fight? So I'm not saying that you were wrong. I just look at things from a completely different perspective, and I'm gonna end off on this. And I'm not saying that you are very polite, but I go into spaces and black men talk tough, but they talk tough to each other, right? And what I'm saying is that well, why weren't your ancestors tough against racism and white supremacy then? So when people hear me speak, I get it. I don't tickle people when I talk, right? I don't say flowery stuff to people. I just say things that are just blatantly there, well, from my perspective, right? So one of my arguments, and I know you said you're about to leave, but one of my biggest arguments is if racism and white supremacy is real, and if it is global, then America is the lion's den of it. So why not just move to a place where it's the least amount of white supremacy, which would be in Africa, assuming that white supremacy is global. So I just pretty much look at the world totally different from a lot of people. It's 8 billion of us on the planet. So I just look at it totally different, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that, if there is such thing as white supremacy. But one thing I can tell you is my parents still own growing up, my dad owned several properties and rented them out to people. And my parents live in a beautiful home right now. They're elderly now, but they still own properties right now in historical neighborhoods, and what's so wrong with living amongst blacks? Why were those black enclaves poor? I thought blacks were intelligent enough to maintain systems. So, I ask a lot of questions about the past, man. I think the past is.
So let me respond to some of those questions. Okay.
Oh
so
yeah, well, I was talking about from my perspective. I didn't. But
okay, I wanted to just speak on that. So here's the thing.
Go ahead, sir.
So let me start with you first. Because you said your parents own a home. That's fine for you. All right. But I know about brain gain, brain drain, and brain waste. Okay. So I know when black immigrants come over here, for the most part, it's a brain gain for America. It's a brain drain for the country. I know that. And not every, I don't know where you're from. It doesn't matter. I'm not trying to, attack you. But wherever you're from, I know that you don't represent the body of your people over there. Okay, wherever you are, wherever you're doing in America, you don't represent your country, right? So they're not living like you over there for the most of them. So you come over here, that's fine. You're doing great. Now, you probably just went to high. You probably went to college, and you deserve what you got. I'm not saying you don't deserve it. I'm not saying you got a pass, and white folks just like there's probably obstacles in your way too, and you maneuver through them, and you did good. It's no problem, no issue with that. But now you said fighting. Okay, so I explained earlier we did fight. So Robert F. Williams is one guy. So Robert F. Williams is one guy who was who started the Deacons for Defense, where they were defending the civil rights movement. Now he was in North Carolina, Monroe, North Carolina, where it had a population of 12,000 people. 7,500 was the Klan. Now the Klan was terrorizing black residents. Now only we have this type of history right here. I'm about to explain to you. We are 7,500 of the 12,000 were Klan. So you can imagine how many was us. Probably even less than that. Some small number. Because there's only how much left to go? 4,500 left. So it was a small population after the Klan made up most of the bulk of the city. Okay, so they terrorized us. They did what they did. Robert F. Williams decided, he was part of the NAACP, by the way. So he decided to come up with Deacons for Defense and have guns. Okay, now this is what we did, and no other black person in the city did. So now they outnumbered. He had 60 armed black men. That's it, 60, versus a population of 7,500 Klansmen. Okay, so now they wanted to come after a member of the NAACP because he was a civil rights activist. Okay, so Robert F. Williams said, if you do that, you're gonna be met with gunfire. Okay, he even wrote a book called Negroes and Guns, and I'm gonna tell you about his story. So this is so when you say fight, that's all we did, and we were totally outnumbered. No other black person can talk like this, but they were outnumbered. Y'all was always the majority and didn't fight. So we have the opposite reaction. We be like, yo, how y'all the majority and can't win? Like we're the minority, we're supposed to lose. Okay. But anyway, Robert F. Williams, the Klan went to do a drive-by. They bust their gun back, right? At the Klan ran. After that, the city banned the Klan from coming back. They passed a city ordinance that said the Klan can't come back, all because black folks bust their gun back. Only 60 black guys armed bust their gun back. The city said the Klan can't come back without the sheriff permission. So that was a complete W for Robert F. Williams and for black people in America. Now, watch this. There was a library. So he didn't stop there. There was a library that was segregated. They didn't allow black folks in there. He was like the first. If you know about First Amendment auditors, well, he was the first one because he went in the library and he brought black folks there and said, no, we pay taxes here. We're going to, our tax money come here. We're going to come to this library as well. He won that case. Okay, now, 2 black boys was kissed by a white girl. And this is all in the same city. Now, the 2 black boys were like 12 and 7. They got arrested and was sentenced 15 years, something crazy. Now, she kissed him on the cheek. What did he do? He went, again, black, strong, powerful, fierce man. He went and went to the tabloids, the newspaper outlets, and he got co-signed by former President D. Roosevelt's wife, was speaking on his behalf. So much so that the pressure was the public pressure got so global, so national that they released the boys in a quick period of time. This is just one black guy. Now he was defending the Freedom Riders. You know about that. So the Klan would try to intimidate them, bust their gun, whatever. So he set up his, he's fierce, a real black FBA fighter, was fighting against all odds. So, and he went and met with the Klan. J. Edgar Hoover tried to infiltrate him and came up short. Matter of fact, he stopped. He left him alone. Okay. So they were defending the Freedom Riders, and the Klan came shooting and they torched the bus. So what he did was, he seen 2 white people in a car that was about to come into harm's way. So because we're FBA, even though we are at war with white folks, we still got a heart for people, for mankind. So he brought them in their house for safety, and they were very grateful for that. But the cops spent the narrative, and even though they never said they were kidnapped, the cops spent this narrative and say he kidnapped them. So now there became an FBI APB on him. He became America's Most Wanted, FBI Most Wanted. Now that white couple never said he robbed anything, some kidnapping. This was the narrative. So he left the country momentarily. He went to Cuba, met with Castro, had a radio station over there, just some real FBAG stuff. He left there and went to North Korea and met with their top leader. And then he went to China and met with Mao Zedong. This is real history. Then he came back to America. He came back. So this is what most people don't do. So when we so-called flee, we actually come back. So he came back to America, known as a warrant by the FBI. He came to Michigan, and he was so thorough. The Michigan government, by the way, this is Jim Crow. The Michigan government will not extradite him to North Carolina because the white Michigan government said he won't get a fair trial. So he didn't want to put, so that, like, he got that much respect. He got international respect and he got national respect. Okay, so now when he finally allowed, well, actually, I think he just went to North Carolina just to face his charges, whatever. And of course, he got acquitted because of some nuances, but he got acquitted. So that's just one example of 60 black men down to one black man fighting behind enemy lines. This is not our own country. We're not outnumbering them. We're outnumbered, and he's pretty much by himself. So that's been our story in this country. We had hella race riots in this country, hella race riots, where we actually fought. Black Wall Street, I believe we had guns and we fought back. I don't believe we hid and ran. I believe they met them and bust their gun back. So we don't have this history you talked about. I don't know about that. I don't know about Black Americans, FBAs, ADOS fleeing from white supremacy. We always fought back, and we always fought back. When they caused the N-word during integration, they got a severe beatdown. So we always fought back, and sometimes we died, we got hung, or we got shot, or whatever happened to us afterwards. But we have a history of fighting back. Now, I can go to these African countries, and I can show they don't have a history of fighting back. Okay, I could run to their governments, I could run to their countries one by one and show you how they didn't fight back. They compromised with the colonization. Nigeria didn't have to sign those contracts with Shell BP. Nigeria sold their people out for oil. The Nigerian government disrespected the Ogoni people. Now you're the majority, and I gotta get on Jamaica because Jamaica's outnumbered the British 20-1. I mean, that's a clear beatdown, right? Never happened. So in all of these African countries, they were outnumbered 100 to 121. Now look at Rwanda. Look at the Tutsis and the Hutus, who let the Belgian government just play them for each other. They're gonna the Hutus were more in number, right? They had a bigger size, bigger population. So the Belgians, what they did was they put the Tutsis in charge of, like, in a powerful position above the Hutus. So they kind of like spearheaded this Rwanda genocide. So now you guys do fight. Not you, but I don't know where you're from, but Africans do fight, and Jamaicans, Caribbean do fight. The problem is it's yourself. It's not ever the enemy. So, and then I explained why black folks don't have much, because we had something. It was literally taken from us, or we were blackballed completely out of it. So now the Nigerian government, they could have spread that oil wealth with the public. They didn't. They could have strengthened their government. They didn't. They put it in their pocket, and that was it. That's what we didn't do. We never sold ourselves out on that type of level, where we literally watched us die for gain. It's not our history. So we were blocked out of wealth. We were discriminated. We were marginalized. We were redlined. And we still, like the brother said earlier, he said, in spite of all that, by the way, you said home ownership, but you didn't respond when I said right after the Emancipation Proclamation, there was a bank set aside for us, and we accumulated $75 million in like 5 years? That's a short span of time. Like, where does money come from? What were we doing to get this money? The bank in 90, 75 or $70 million. You can Google that. It's between 57 million and $70 million. That's what we did. Once white supremacy, which was white supremacy, once they were neutralized by us and with the help of Union soldiers, there's a bank set aside, a savings bank set aside for us, and we accumulated. Oh yeah, that's the thing was, it was a savings bank, but the white guy undermined it by making it an investment bank. So he started to, so now that was like killing the brand because they pitched it as a savings bank and not an investment bank. But the white guy used the savings bank as an investment bank. He started to make investments. So people, he gave the bank a bad name. Then he blew the money, and that's one of the reasons, brother, why we don't have bank accounts. So when you ask us, do we got a bank account? And when some of us, I do. But when some of us say no, there's a reason for that. And that reason is just passed down unknowingly to us. We don't know that our great-great-grandfather had that experience and he passed that, oh, no banks, to his son. And his son unknowingly said, nah, no banks. And that's how that kind of goes for the person who don't have a bank today. It goes like that. And back to the doctors. We don't go to doctors, we die. Well, why? Well, medical apartheid explains that. As guinea pigs, gynecologists found it off black slave women. So we became, so forget about the Tuskegee, we become lab rats, period. In all of this time, we become lab rats. So there's a reason why we don't do stuff. It's not just because we don't want a bank account or we don't want to go to the hospital. It's because there's a long history in this country of us being mistreated, malpractices in these places, in these institutions. So that's why some of us probably don't got a bank account, because it just ignorantly passed down from parents to parent to parent that stem from a real parent who experienced or heard about, maybe he didn't experience, but he definitely read about or heard about what happened with the Freedmen Bank. So
there it is.
2 hours now. So you want something to
I just want to say real quick, I'm not gonna, because it's late and I know everybody's tired, and there'll be other days or evenings where you can reintroduce the subject again, but I'll say quickly, without going into all the long drawn out details, Black folk did fight back. They didn't just stand around holding their hands praying like Mr. Chaotic Truth would like to purport and promulgate, that's a typical Caribbean, typical African thing. My parents own this house and they always own houses, and my friends and the college education, et cetera, which that's great. If he has that, but it's like, okay, how is that relevant to the conversation here, your personal or your familial accomplishments? When you came on the panel, no one was talking about their individual accomplishments, which there could be another show on that if we need to go there. But I digress. Black folk were fighting back. There's proof of that. Now, the numbers, a totally different thing. I mean, if you have a town of, say, 200 black people and being attacked by, say, 800 white folk, and they're armed to the teeth, yeah, black folk gonna fight back. Even if they lose that physical battle, they didn't disgrace themselves. They stood their ground, 10 toes down. I just don't, I see that very disingenuous from Chaotic Truth to come with that. But again, that's typical of a lot. There's some Caribbeans that I do know now that they won't tolerate that. I know some, shout out to them, some other Jamaicans that I know that, we're like-minded on these subjects. Some Trinis and a handful of Haitians I know that we're like-minded, like-spirited on these subjects. So when you all, FBA, y'all delineate, trust me, I have no problem with that. I think many FBA don't realize yet how beneficial your delineating is. I'm convinced some don't know yet. I'm like, yo, it's really helpful because we're really flushing people out. Really flushing a lot of the haters, the coons, the Sambos out. When these Caribbeans and Africans, they talk about, oh, black people in America, black Americans, they all talk about racism and white man this, white man that. When many of them themselves trying to be like the very people that they criticize you all of complaining about. So to those Caribbeans and Africans listening to this, how can you all talk trash about FBA trying, complaining about white America? Y'all trying to be white. Y'all skin bleaching creams, hell, FBA women don't use, with all the accessorizing they do, you can joke about FBA women with the wigs or weaves, but one thing you can't get on FBA women about is them skin bleaching cream. You can count on one hand the amount of FBAs that may use skin bleaching creams in comparison to, say, a Caribbean person or African person. And I'm talking on average. But if someone got the numbers, hey, put it out there. Let me know. Educate me. I might be incorrect. But I'll leave it. I'll land right there because.
Right, so I'm gonna give Callie the real last words, and then I'm not gonna say nothing back. We're going to bed. So, Callie, you want to respond to anything we said, or you want to?
No, I mean, no. I'm glad that you had me on.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, we can agree to disagree, and man, if you're alive again, I'll check you out again, man.
Yeah, I'll probably be getting on Lord Jamar.
Sounds good. Peace.
All right, man. Good night, everybody. Peace.
Have a good night. None to you, peace and protection. Thank you for having me on the platform.
Thanks for coming. Peace. Pull up tomorrow.
Saturday.
Yes.